Welcome to The Real World. My name is Cameron. This is Carson.
That's right.
We are so happy that you are here on The Real World YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. We're movie fans, so we're talking all about movies all the time.
That's right.
This incredible collection I have here, over 1,000 movies on Blu-ray, DVD, 4K. We talk about what's in theaters. We talk about what's on streaming. We just did a video about all the movies we watched in the month of January. So if you want some movie recommendations,
right.
People are always asking us, what'd you watch?
What's
lately?
out?
What's
should I
going
watch?
on? Yeah. So that's the video to watch if you want to know what you should check out. But today we're doing something a little different. When we announced the channel update for 2025, this was one of the things that was high on our list, something we've wanted to do for a while.
Yeah, we've talked about doing sort of a worldview breakdown.
Yeah,
of a
exactly.
movie.
Right, exactly.
So we kind of select a film and try to almost reverse engineer it and kind of determine what it's really saying about
what's
whatever,
the message?
whatever its topic is.
What's the theme? What's the message? And we're going to come at all of this from a biblical Christian worldview. We're both believers, and so we wanted to do this just to kind of unpack these movies a little bit more and see how they compare to the Christian worldview. What kind of worldview do they put forth? And so it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. And today is February 2nd.
That's right.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
So we're going to talk about the movie Groundhog Day.
Yep.
It's a movie I watch every year on Groundhog Day. And so it's a fun movie. It's really well made. So let's get started. All right, so we're talking Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day released in 1993. Starring Bill Murray.
Yep.
Andy McDowell. Directed by Harold Ramis, who's a great comedy director.
Yeah, what else did he do? He
did Caddyshack.
That's right. That's right.
He's done several great comedies over his career. He's really talented as a filmmaker. He's talented as a writer. Okay. He's, of course, the guy behind Ghostbusters as well.
Of course, right.
And so he's a really talented guy. He unfortunately passed away a few years back, but he left a pretty big mark on cinema and specifically the comedy genre between the Ghostbusters films and like I mentioned Caddyshack, Stripes. I mean, he's done several films.
He definitely knew how to write Bill Murray.
Oh yeah,
I think that's something that Bill Murray kind of struggled with. I think after like in a post '90s world was trying to figure out what is his thing, what is his style, because other people didn't really know how to handle him. I think.
Yeah, sure.
But Groundhog Day, in my opinion, is solid gold standard for Bill Murray performances.
Perfect film, in my opinion. I give it 5 stars. I think it is fantastic. The writing, the direction, the editing, the performances, this whole idea of getting caught in a time loop has been done many times since. But this was sort of like one of the first out there.
Everyone refers to those movies as Groundhog Day movies.
Yes. Groundhog Day in the future. Or Groundhog Day, with Tom Cruise, Edge of Tomorrow, that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's definitely a film that's left its mark on the cinematic history.
Yeah, but what an interesting concept to put into a comedy.
Yes.
To a Bill Murray comedy vehicle.
Right.
And I think that it's interesting because it's kind of a science fiction concept.
Yes, it is.
So you'd expect to be in like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Exactly. Or a movie like Edge of Tomorrow, where there's aliens or stuff like that. But this is just a very grounded...
Yeah.
It all takes place in one small town. Mm-hmm. It makes it very relatable.
Yeah, it makes it more of a dramedy.
Yes, exactly.
It's very character focused.
So let's dive in. As we're trying to unpack the message of this film, what are our takeaways? So I think first of all, looking at this through the Christian worldview, it is definitely a redemption arc for the character.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a character who starts off extremely selfish. Narcissistic,
yeah,
really.
Bill Murray's basically playing his character from Scrooged in this.
Yes,
he's essentially...
Exactly. Yeah.
I love the line, because there's a blizzard and he's trying to call someone over the phone.
Yes.
He's like, don't you have a special line for celebrities or emergencies? They're like, which one are you? He's like, I'm both. I'm a celebrity and an emergency.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he's very self-centered character, does not care about anyone else, is very rude to pretty much everyone around him. Yeah. Even the people who I think you would say are his friends, who are the closest to him, his coworkers and things like that.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting... he's a really interesting character for this thing to happen to.
Right.
Because I think the reason that he's feeling that way, the reason that he kind of is almost fed up with everyone, is because I think he feels like he hasn't had enough time to do all the things that he's always wanted to do. He kind of feels like this is his job, and this is what he's good at, and this is what he's known for, and it's making him money.
Yeah, he doesn't like going to the small town.
Exactly,
he hates it. He goes every year.
Yeah,
but he doesn't really enjoy it.
It's beneath him.
Right,
his time is better spent in other places.
Exactly,
is what he's thinking.
He thinks he should be on a network, some big network. He's in the small town.
So that being the character that we give basically unlimited time to.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes for an interesting story.
Yes, it really does. But the interesting thing, too, is that he's trapped, right? He can't leave this small town. He's trapped. There's a blizzard. The roads are closed. He can't... There's no airport in the small town.
Yeah.
So he's trapped, essentially. So it's really interesting. I mean, I guess you could look at that as we're time-bound creatures. We're bound to this world.
Yeah.
We can't go beyond it. We're physical beings,
right.
Who have souls, obviously, that can never die. But we are bound by our flesh.
Yeah, Bill Murray, really interesting story here that I think really the point of it is he's a character who is boastful because he hasn't really accomplished everything that he's saying that he has.
True.
He isn't really a celebrity.
Right.
He isn't really as big as his talk, right?
Exactly.
But through the course of the film, because it's the same day repeated over and over again, he develops all of these skills and becomes a master piano player and
he becomes a hero to the small town.
Exactly.
Everyone knows him.
He becomes like incredible at everything that he wants to do. He learns anything he wants, and he has unlimited time.
Yeah.
And ultimately, him in the process of learning how to do all that stuff gains more humility.
Yes.
And becomes less boastful.
Well, here's what's interesting. Let's take it kind of beat by beat through the storyline. So he starts off as, I think, what you could call an agnostic narcissist with a naturalistic worldview. Right?
Okay, sure.
That's kind of his view of the world. It's all self-centered.
Sure.
No one else matters. And he has this line where after he gets stuck in this time loop, he says, "What would you do if you were stuck in one place and everything that you did was the same and nothing mattered?" So he's ultimately kind of nihilistic.
Sure.
He becomes nihilistic as he's living through this time loop.
Yeah.
So he kind of starts off, he's just freaked out by what's happening. Then he becomes sort of hedonistic. He becomes very much just seeking pleasure. He's tricking people. He's gorging himself with as much food as possible, becoming a glutton. Yeah. He's doing all these things that are very underhanded because he can, and no one can stop him. He drives on the railroad tracks.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
He breaks all the rules.
That kind of inevitably leads to him being almost near suicidal.
And then he does lead to being suicidal.
Yeah.
That leads. He ultimately finds no purpose. There's all the pleasures in the world I could gain. It's nothing. Exactly. It doesn't matter. It's a pursuit of the wind, as the Bible says.
Exactly.
Then he becomes suicidal. He gives up on life because he's like, none of this matters. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to try to kill myself in any way possible.
Yeah.
Electrocutes himself, jumps off a building.
Right.
I mean, all these crazy things that he does. He becomes totally just.
Apathetic.
There's such despair.
Totally.
He comes to the end of himself, and then, only then is when he finally learns. You know what? I'm stuck here. I can't leave this time.
Right. Nothing I can do has changed anything.
Let's make the best of it.
Right.
And he starts serving others before himself.
Yeah, exactly.
He starts looking for, I know this kid falls out of this tree and breaks his leg, so I'm going to go save him. Mm-hmm. I know that these old ladies, break down on the side of the road, so I'm going to go help them.
Right.
He starts looking outside of himself and loving others.
Right.
And that's how ultimately he finds fulfillment and purpose.
Exactly.
So it's a great arc.
Totally.
The central themes, as his ego diminishes over time, change is obviously a central theme. Like you mentioned, he becomes humble. Mm-hmm. He overcomes his selfishness, his pride.
What I love, and what I think really the point of breaking any movie down like this is, these are all secular movies.
Correct.
It's not like it's not like the point of this movie is put faith in Jesus and there's a God and all of that. That's never the point.
No.
Almost never.
Almost never.
In some rare scenarios, it is kind of the point.
Narnia,
kind of that's the point. But no. So there's still moral tales that are being told.
Everyone has a basic morality
that are rooted in Christian philosophy.
Correct.
And
everyone has to borrow from the Christian worldview in order to live their lives.
Sure.
Right. I mean, that's just what it boils down to.
Yeah.
because we're all born with a conscience. We know right from wrong.
Right.
We know what God's law is.
Yeah.
And so, So
it's really us just extrapolating the moral tales.
Yes.
And the kind of like the lessons that are being taught from these stories.
Correct. So another cool theme I thought was knowledge is power. Think about this. He's living his life over and over. He's learning everything about every single person in this town. You can point to anyone in the town and he'll tell you everything about them.
Right. Knowledge becomes a superpower.
Knowledge becomes a superpower. Absolutely. And, as we know from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. He can use this power wrong, and he does use it wrongly initially.
Of course, yeah.
To manipulate people. And but eventually he uses it to help. He uses it to help other people.
Right.
And the whole movie, too, it boils down to this idea of something we heard in sermon this morning, which is living in the moment. He really learns to ultimately live for this day and make this day the best day it could be.
Right. That I think is the ultimate tragedy of life. Is that, and especially adulthood. Really,
we're constantly obsessed with the future.
We're constantly trying to plan and control as much as we can.
Yeah.
To create an outcome that's beneficial to us.
Yes, exactly.
So letting go of control, letting go of really fate, and just allowing things to play out the way that they're meant to play out.
Yes.
And making ourselves as useful as possible with every moment.
That's the thing is he's, the kind of, I guess you might sum up the movie by saying that if you break the bad patterns in your life, you can succeed. You can get better as a person. You can become better.
Sure, yeah. And that fulfillment doesn't come from necessarily bettering yourself, but bettering others around you.
Exactly. So, don't get trapped in the same routines, especially if they don't satisfy you. Learning to change. Change is a part of life. It's a central part of life.
Importantly, he doesn't start helping anyone until he fixes his own problems first.
It's true.
So, getting yourself right and then using your energy to help others.
Right. It's like that thing on the airplane where they tell you, fix your mask
before
that you fix someone else's mask.
Right.
It's that whole concept of if you're not helping yourself, you're not going to be able to help other people.
Right. You'll have no motivation to either.
Exactly.
Just kind of the point and the story that he goes through in this movie.
So rebirth obviously is a big theme. I think you could say too. Even just aesthetically, the film is set during winter, but it's about the groundhog. If he sees a shadow, then there's winter. If not, then there's spring. And so the whole idea of winter coming to spring, new life occurring,
and the fact that it's stuck in winter, stuck in this eternal
winter, exactly. Just misery. Like Narnia, you're stuck in the eternal winter.
Exactly.
Always winter, never Christmas.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Narnia is secretly the saddest movie.
Right.
For that reason.
Right. So in reference to rebirth, another theme that is not a Christian theme would be reincarnation.
Oh, right.
So Hinduism, Buddhism, there's this whole idea of, you live this life and then there's a whole nother life after this that you get to live again.
Right.
And you get to make yourself better.
Your morality determines what you return as.
Yes, the whole karma idea of, if you do good things in this life, the next life you'll be even better. Good will come back around.
Yeah.
If you do bad things are going to happen to you.
Which I would say just experientially is wrong.
Yes, it is.
Like there's so much good that goes punished. Correct. And there's so much wrong that goes unpunished.
That's very true. Divine justice is a theme that I think you can ultimately extrapolate, and it would be really interesting to explore. We ultimately know that justice will be done.
Sure.
But in this life, in this world,
right.
there is not perfect justice.
Juror number 2.
Juror number 2. Maybe we'll cover that one in the future. So, when you're talking about, you just had kind of mentioned about how the movie's obviously secular. It's not coming to everything with a Christian or biblical worldview.
Yeah, but everything ultimately that's created gives glory to its creator.
Exactly. And so the whole biblical idea of regeneration, I think, would be a better way to look at it. If you're looking at it from a biblical lens, you're looking at the idea of, yes, this guy, he was a sinner. He was living life according to the flesh, indulging in sin, and then ultimately comes to a realization.
Yeah, a renewal of the mind.
Repentance and faith.
Right.
And that's when he's kind of reborn as this new creature.
Yeah.
And you could say again, there's no really direct... they do mention God directly in one scene. We'll cover in just a second. But I think you could look at the time loop itself as divine intervention.
Sure. Yeah, it's a very, It's a Wonderful Life type story.
Right, because, even less than It's a Wonderful Life, there's no explanation for the time loop.
Sure.
It just happens.
Yeah.
There's no, he walks through a portal or anything like that.
There's no angel who says...
There's no angel who comes down. He doesn't try to save someone and die or anything. It's just... It just happens. It just happens one day. And so...
And honestly, I much prefer that.
Yeah.
I think
there's no need to explain.
Yeah, I think that for concepts like that, I think it's far more acceptable.
Yes.
To have no explanation and say, this is the scenario.
Exactly.
This is the what if that we're dealing with.
Right. Yeah, he didn't try to create some device that makes him go back in time or anything like that. So, I think... Let's go to that scene where they do mention God directly. Because
I don't remember the scene.
It's a scene in the diner.
Okay.
Where he's got, he's ordered everything on the menu, basically. Everything he's just kind of indulging in. And it's after he's gone... I think it's actually a different scene. It might be after that scene. Anyways, it's in the diner. He's gone through this whole thing of trying to kill himself and all of this. He's gone through all this already. And he comes to Rita, played by Andie MacDowell. She comes in, and he says, "I am a god."
Yeah.
And she goes, "You're not a god." and he says, "No, I'm a god, not the god."
Yeah, exactly.
And she goes, "You're not a god. This is 12 years of Catholic school." So that's really the direct mention of God in the film, which is a really interesting idea that he recognizes. Look, I know I'm not the God. I'm not the ultimate creator of all things.
Right.
But I have God-like abilities now where I don't age.
It's a very...
I don't die.
Right, yeah. And it's a very, we see in Solomon's writings, we see that. Mm-hmm. He has exorbitant wealth. He has everything he could ever want. Everything. Mm-hmm. And still... It's meaningless.
He finds no purpose in it. It's a pursuit of the wind.
Right.
So, yes, that's a very good theme. Again, like we said before, despair grips our hero at one point. And so hope is another major theme, I would say.
Yeah.
And I find hope to be a theme in so many movies. I mean, most movies, honestly.
Yeah, I would say that's probably, especially in American cinema, that is very much the unifying theme.
Because it's usually your story goes where your hero kind of falls at a certain point and does feel that kind of desperation and despair.
Yeah.
And then he eventually has to find some hope, something to put his faith in, or to some reason to move forward, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's a big concept here that I think is very good. Other direct religious imagery I tried to find. I couldn't find a ton. I think when he jumps off the building, that might be a church. There's kind of a bell tower there. I don't know for sure. Yeah. It's hard to tell. But he does spread his arms as well, kind of in that Christ cross figure as he falls. So there's those little things that I think you could pick up on too. And so, we already mentioned, the writings of Solomon, Proverbs, the book of Ecclesiastes is huge for this film. I think reading those books, you're going to come away with a very clear idea of what this movie is doing.
Sure.
When you read books like that.
Yeah.
So
and it's really cool to see people making films like this and people writing these stories who don't necessarily have kind of a knowledge of even where these stories are coming from and what's really happening. Obviously nothing new is under the sun.
Right.
So we see these stories repeated time and again,
over
and over again, that are just kind of embedded into just our lives.
Exactly. Absolutely. So ultimately the film comes to the conclusion where he's trying to help other people, and you can tell he really wants Rita to love him, to just love him for who he is, or who he's become, I guess you could say. And he does so many different things to try to get her to be with him, and it ultimately all fails.
Yeah.
Every different way. I love the scene where he falls down in the snow with her, and then he tries to move his body into a correct position. He's like, I wonder if I just lay in the right position. Maybe that'll make her. You can see him doing it, and it's so funny because it's he's so desperate. And all these different things he's doing, different ways he's wording things.
Try any little thing.
You get to see all these scenes play out over and over as he keeps trying. And ultimately, it's only when, like we said, he finds purpose in himself. He's not really even doing it. He's not trying to make her fall in love with him as much as he's just trying to love her.
Well, I think he sees her as someone who, when she gives love to someone, they're worthy of it.
Right.
And I think he wants to be worthy of love.
Right.
And he knows that she is a good source of that.
Right. Yeah. She's a good
person. Judge of character, basically.
Exactly.
So her loving someone is like, that must be a nice person.
Exactly. And so it's only when he kind of lets go of all of it and she just naturally loves him unconditionally.
Right.
That's ultimately the end of the film.
Yeah.
That's when he exits the time loop and it becomes February 3rd finally.
Yeah.
After, I mean, people have estimated 10,000 years or however long he's been stuck in this time loop. That's ultimately when it ends. When he finds purpose and he finds someone to love him unconditionally.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the end of the story. And it's a perfect ending. Because
it is a perfect ending.
A great journey
people often say, I wonder what that guy's life was like now. I mean, he lived to 10,000 years. Right. He's got to be the smartest, richest man in the world.
Right. As far as that one town goes, he's definitely the smartest.
I would say probably his favorite thing in life would be waking up and not knowing what's going to happen the next day. And exactly. I think that's really another focal point of the story.
It is. At the end of the story, he's very happy.
Yeah.
He's not like, oh man, I kind of wish I was still in the time loop. He's always trying to get out. Yeah. Even after he makes peace with it,
right?
He's always, I think at the end you can see the kind of joy on his face of, it's a new day. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And it's a cool dichotomy between him at the beginning and end, because the beginning, again, he's a very adult character.
Yeah.
So he definitely feels that kind of Monday morning dread.
Yes.
Every day it's the next day is going to be another slog I have to go through. And some other problem, new problems. To deal with all these new problems. Whereas getting new problems and having new things to do is what makes him most excited every day.
Exactly. So many people feel this way. Many people get in their routines and they feel like, man, am I making any difference? Does this matter, what I'm doing every day?
I totally get it.
And yes, it does matter. Ultimately, everything matters. That's the Christian perspective of the world, is that everything you do, everything you say matters. The naturalistic worldview is nothing matters. Yeah. We're all just matter.
Right.
That's all we are.
Yeah.
And nothing matters, really. So ultimate purpose and fulfillment is found in Christ and in God and who he is and what he's given us his revelation through his word, tells us why things are the way they are, and it tells us, it gives us hope for the future as well. And so, anything else to add about Groundhog Day? I know it's one of our favorites. We've watched it so many times.
It's a great film. It's been a bit since I've seen it.
Okay.
But it's definitely one that stands the test of time, ironically.
Yeah, I agree completely. It is strange, isn't it? You would think a movie like this would get so old because you're just seeing the same things happen, but it's so interesting. And again, the character journey is so great. The writing is so clever.
I'll tell you what, from a producer's point of view, this is a great, cost-effective film.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very
minimal set,
same
minimal
characters,
cast,
really just a script that repeats itself consistently.
Right, but it's
very interesting pace too.
It is
a film that, from an editor's point of view, I wouldn't know how to tackle.
Right, the editing's fantastic.
You've got the same shots over and over.
I know. Same shot setup. I
really would be curious to see the behind the scenes of how they shot all of those things.
Yeah, because you have to have background characters doing the same things. I mean,
I wonder
no small task.
I'm betting that they probably shot multiple sequences in the same moment.
Correct.
Where it's this is day 7.
Every scene that takes place in this location, we're shooting today.
This is the 4th time you've done it. Right. Now, that's got to be difficult for an actor to go through all that.
To keep track, it's
tough.
Really tough.
Yeah.
Bill Murray's fantastic.
He is.
It's his best film.
I think a lot of his work goes kind of unsung.
I agree.
We talked about Scrooge briefly.
That's brilliant.
A fantastic film.
Absolutely.
He's a fantastic actor for sure.
Absolutely. So check out,
even when he phones it in.
I agree.
In Zombieland,
I agree.
He's great.
He is. He's great in cameo roles. Doesn't matter what he does. So, let us know what you think of this movie, Groundhog Day. I'm sure many of you watch it. I know it's an annual tradition for many So leave a comment down below your favorite aspect of Groundhog Day, maybe your favorite moment or scene, and what you come away with thinking about after this movie's over. It really is one that makes me appreciate life.
Definitely.
It really is. That's why I like watching this and movies like It's a Wonderful Life annually, because it just reminds me of what's important and why we're here.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much. This is a new experiment for us, so hopefully you like it.
Yep.
If you like it enough, we'll keep doing more. There's plenty of movies, many we mentioned on this video that we want to talk about.
Definitely.
So a lot we could explore here. Leave a comment down below. Make sure you hit that like button. Hit the share button. Share this on social media. We're both on Letterboxd, so make sure you follow us. Those links are in the description. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos after you hit subscribe. And we will see you next time right here on The Real World.